2.
Fight! Finish him! Technically, we are finishing him. So, last year we talked about Sigurd and Gunhild. This year we're talking about Siegfried and Kriemhild.
Well, we talked about Brynhildr last
Sorry,
time, so.
Brynhildr.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned... Oh, Guthrun. That's what
Yeah.
I was talking about, yeah. My brain. It's not on point today. It's fine. I'm just thinking about nothing but solo leveling. So I hope those of you who were paying attention to my hints at the end got the hint. I assume you did. There was basically no one else that it could refer to. But it was, in fact, the ending of the T.H.E saga, which is one of the Norse attestations of the myth of Siegfried or Sigurd. However, Siegfried is the continental and Germanic version of Sigurd, and although Germanic sources sometimes recount them as two different tales, most Norse sources, which we talked about last time, simply consider Siegfried to be the continental version of the Sigurd story. So they are, in many ways, one and the same, just from two different traditions and areas of the world. And we've talked about different traditions before on the channel. So, with that being said, this is also technically where Attila the Hun comes in, which Nick Nack called me out last time. It was like, what about the connection to Attila? Well, the connection to Attila is Germanic, not Norse.
You were right. That was
yeah. And last time
I got that much more here.
Yeah, last time I didn't really want to go into kind of the Germanic associations of the myth, so I stayed away from them, other than the mention of the Nibelungenlied and the kind of Siegfried operas and stuff like that, because that's more pop culture and that sort of thing. But today we are talking about Siegfried, coming from Siegi, meaning victory, and Fried, meaning peace. Victory and peace. And I feel victory and peace for finally being done with this servant. Or, will be done with this servant at some point. So, there are some historical figures that Siegfried has been attributed with. One of the main ones being Siegbert I from the 570s, who was married to Brynhilda of Austrasia, right? And that's kind of like one of the main historical sources for who these people might have been, which is interesting, because with Fate Servants, we don't always get who these people might have been in history or where they might have gotten. So the earliest Germanic traditions of Siegfried kind of enter the historical record in around 1200 with the Nibelungenlied, which is the saga of the ring. Typically, the German tradition associates Siegfried with a kingdom called Niederland, which is not the same as the modern Netherlands, but it could be vaguely Burgundian in terms of where it is on the map. And I know Nick Nack will not have this context, so I think it's an important one to show. So, the Kingdom of Burgundy is kind of a specific area in Europe, and this might help you a little bit. But so it's vaguely French, actually.
Oui, oui.
Burgundy's also kind of a pretty important in a fair amount of European history. They generally just happen to be a pretty influential and important power in sort of medieval Europe, right? So, Burgundy is not uncommon to come across in references, and it is slightly towards the Germany side of France, but its borders have changed over time rather drastically. So at one point it was kind of more southward, and then it kind of grew and then consolidated. But essentially it's not in Germany, which is interesting. So, the Nibelungenlied, which is what our main story is from, the Nibelungenlied, which, depending on your version, gives us two different versions of Siegfried's youth. According to the main story, his father is King Siegmund and his mother is Sieglind, which is where you get Siegfried. He is a prince and he has a courtly upbringing in the famous city of Xanten, which is a town near Rhine-Westphalia of Germany today. In this version of the story, he comes to the capital of the Burgundian kingdom, which is now called Worms, and he wants to woo the Princess Kriemhild, who we will get to later. But when he comes, there is a vassal to the Burgundian state known as Hagen von Tronje, and this vassal actually tells a different story of Siegfried's youth. According to Hagen, he was a wandering warrior who wore the coat of the Nibelungen and carried the sword Balmung, as well as a cloak of invisibility that increased the wearer's strength 12 times. In his version, he tells an unrelated story about how Siegfried killed a dragon, bathed in its blood, received its skin, which was hard as horn, making him invulnerable. Of these features of kind of the tales of his youth, only those directly relevant to the main story are mentioned largely in the Nibelungenlied. But yes, so essentially he comes to the court of Burgundy under one of two pretenses. Either he is a prince wanting to woo the princess, or a traveling warrior wanting to do much the same. And if he is a traveling warrior, he has already blooded and proven himself. And if he is a prince, we don't actually know if he had, right? So, in order to win the hand of this Princess Kriemhild, he becomes friends with the Burgundian kings, Gunther, Gernot, and Giselher, right? And they are the brothers of Kriemhild. Gunther then decides Gunther decides that he wants to woo the Queen of Iceland, who's very kind of like war-minded. This is a warrior queen, and her name is Brunhild. And he tells Siegfried that Siegfried may marry Kriemhild if he helps him woo Brunhild. So they lie to Brunhild and claim that Siegfried is Gunther's vassal. And to woo Brunhild, whoever is in the kind of wanting to woo her must accomplish a series of tasks, and she will kill any who fails. And so while Gunther is going through these tasks, Siegfried, using his cloak of invisibility, aids Gunther in every task, right? Until he succeeds in all of them. Upon their return to Worms, he then marries Kriemhild, following Gunther's marriage to Brunhild. However, on Gunther's wedding night, Brunhild prevents him from sleeping with her by tying him up with her belt and hanging him from a hook in their bedchambers. Which is a little funny, but also, like, I kind of get where she's coming from. Like, she was told that this man had completed all these great tasks, and then he gets to the bedroom, and, like, she's just able to, like, tie him up and hang him from a hook like a chunk of meat. Obviously, this man did not complete those tasks on his own.
You cheated.
Yeah, like, somehow, because otherwise, I mean, unless you're into that kind of thing.
I don't know, maybe he was.
Maybe he was. Gunther, by icon. The next night, Siegfried uses his cloak of invisibility to overpower Brunhild, allowing Gunther to sleep with her. Once again, he's cheating, right? And although Siegfried himself does not sleep with Brunhild, he takes her belt and ring, giving them to Kriemhild as gifts. So, Kriemhild and Sigurd have a son, whom they name Gunther, after the person who facilitated their marriage. And when Brunhild and Kriemhild fight over which of them should have precedence, and, you know, this is pretty funny because Brunhild thinks that Kriemhild is the wife of a vassal, whereas, you know, Kriemhild knows that her husband is the one who actually succeeded in getting through all this stuff with Brunhild. And to be honest, you know, based on the backstory, it could be that Siegfried is a prince in this version, in which case, you know, he might be the rightful heir to a kingdom, and therefore he would be on par with Gunther and Brunhild. So, you know, Brunhild's being pretty judgmental here about what she thinks about Siegfried and therefore Kriemhild. Also, Kriemhild is the sister of 3 different kings. She herself has great precedence in terms of the power that she would wield politically, as would her husband. Mm-hmm. So, like...
But at the end of the day, this is a petty argument.
I can smell the beef.
I can too. Meat.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted because it smells too good. So, eventually, at the door of the main cathedral in Worms, the two of them begin to argue who should enter first, and Brunhild openly accuses Kriemhild of being married to nothing but a vassal, while Kriemhild claims that Siegfried took Brunhild's virginity, producing the belt and ring given to her as proof. Siegfried, of course, denies this publicly, but as a result, Hagen and Brunhild decide to murder him, and Gunther, who at this point has kind of been disgraced, agrees. Right? He's like, okay, like I can't have this going around. People.
Siegfried at this point, like, shut up, wife.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening, which is absolutely fucking hilarious. So, Hagen tricks Kriemhild into telling him where Siegfried's skin is vulnerable, because remember, he's got the invulnerable skin. And then Gunther is able to invite Siegfried to take part in a hunt of the Waskenwald, or the Vosges, right? And the Vosges it's a range of mountains in eastern France near the border of Germany. And together with the Palatine Forest, it creates a geomorphological area that runs north-northeast to the Burgundian Gate, right? And forming the upper border of the Western Rhine Plain, right? So it's hunting in this specific area. While he is slaking his thirst at a spring, Hagen stabs him in the vulnerable part of his back with a spear, and Siegfried is mortally wounded. However, he still attacks Hagen before cursing all the Burgundians and dying. Hagen then has his corpse thrown outside the door of Kriemhild's bedroom, where she mourns him. 'Cause that fucking sucks, my dude.
End of Act 1.
End of Act 1. So there is a redaction of the Nibelungenlied called Nibelungenlied C, which does have a couple small changes in the text that I thought were notable. In this version, he's not killed in the Vosges, but in the Odenwald. And this claims that that one can still visit the spring where he was killed near the village of Odenheim, which is part of Ostringen today, and that he was buried at the Abbey of Lorch in a marble sarcophagus, which is connected to the marble sarcophagus that was on display in the Abbey that was dug up when they were rebuilding it after a fire in 1090, right? Which is pretty interesting, because then it gives us kind of like a historical connection too. All right, so this is not the only place that Siegfried is mentioned in Germanic tradition. He is also mentioned in the Rosengarten zu Worms.
The Worms.
Zu Worms. So this is a 15th century manuscript. But the story's about circa 1250 approximately. So just a little while later, right? So in this version, we start the story with Siegfried being betrothed to Kriemhild, and is one of 12 warriors who are charged with defending her rose garden in the city of Worms. At this point, Kriemhild decides that she wants to test the hero Dietrich von Bern against Siegfried to see if Siegfried is as strong as he truly claims. So she invites him and 12 of his warriors to fight her 12 champions. When this initially starts, Dietrich refuses to fight Siegfried on the grounds that the dragon's blood has made his skin invulnerable, but is convinced to fight Siegfried by the false news that his mentor Hildebrand is dead, and he becomes so enraged that he begins to breathe fire, melting Siegfried's protective layer of horn, and thus able to penetrate his skin with a sword, at which point Siegfried becomes so afraid that he flees to Kriemhild's lap. And only the reappearance of Hildebrand prevents Dietrich from then killing Siegfried, which is a very different kind of take on like the strength and power of Siegfried. This role does not agree with the Nibelungenlied, because in the Nibelungenlied, the two of them are never formally betrothed. Kriemhild's father is also named differently than in the Nibelungenlied. So traditions were conflicting between these two stories, but some of the details of the Rosengarten agree with the Thidrek saga, which is the piece I read at the beginning about Sigurd and Siegfried, right? Mentioning both that Siegfried was raised by a smith named Eckerig, and if you remember, he was partially raised by a smith in the Sigurd myth. So already, like by 1250, we've got 2 to 3 different versions of the story with certain factors agreeing and certain factors conflicting, which is pretty common of sort of this like very like medieval period literature, right? Is that it's localized to different areas and then these stories change in each of their significant areas, right? So we're gonna skip over the Norse context because I talked about that in the Sigurd and Brunhild video. So we're not really going to talk about the T.H.E saga, right, which was originally written in Old Norse, and although it was translated from Germanic tales and likely sourced from the Nibelungenlied, it's not as Germanic. So, but there's a few things we should cover. So in here, he's also the son of a king, right? Which in here it attributes him to being. This attributes is to being the land of the Carolingians and a queen of Spain. So in this, he's the son of the queen of Spain and the king of the Carolingians. And the okay, hold on.
Suddenly realizing you have a knick-knack, at least one knick-knack in your audience.
Yeah, so Carolingian Empire. Can I get a bigger? Okay, Carolingian Empire. So France, once again, he's still kind of the Franco-German, same as if he was from the Burgundians, right? It would still be over in this area, right? So we're still talking about sort of this Franco-German area of the kind of globe, right? Which would make sense because we're talking about these tales that are happening long before these like Franco-German kingdoms are formed with these kind of like earlier kingdoms. So, in this story, his father, when returning from the campaign, discovered that his wife was pregnant and believed that she had been unfaithful and therefore exiled her to what scholars believe is the Black Forest, right? Which is a pretty famous in German folklore, where she then gives birth to Sigurd or Siegfried. At this time, he is suckled by a hind and found by a smith named Mimir. And because he is unruly, Mimir sends him to Regin, his brother, who has become a dragon, in the hopes that he will kill the boy because he is too much for him to handle. At this point, though, he slays Regin, the dragon, and tastes its flesh, learning the language of the birds and of Mimir's treachery. He then smears himself with dragon's blood, making his skin invulnerable, and returns to Mimir, who attempts to give him weapons to placate him. He then encounters Brunhild after killing Mimir, who gives him the horse Grein, and then goes to King Isung of Bertangenland. At this point, a character called T.H.E, who is eponymous with Dietrich von Bern, we talked about Dietrich earlier, the hero, comes to Bertangenland, the place where he now is, fighting against Sigurd. T.H.E is unable to wound him because of his invulnerable skin, but on the third day, T.H.E receives the sword Mimung, which can cut through Sigurd's skin, and defeats him. The two of them then ride to King Gunnar, who is eponymous with King Gunther, where he marries Gunnar's sister Grimhild, who is Kriemhild. Sigurd recommends to Gunnar that he marry Brunhild, and the two ride to woo her, right? So already, this story is sharing a lot of similarities with the Nibelungenlied, including eponymous characters. Brunhild, however, claims that Sigurd said he would marry her earlier in the text, although this is not mentioned in the earlier text, and eventually agrees to marry Gunnar or Gunther. She will not allow him to consummate the marriage, though, so Sigurd takes Gunnar's shape and deflowers Brunhild, taking away her strength. They then return with Brunhild to Gunther's court. So, very similar. He needs to aid Gunther in the taking of Brunhild, or, this other woman, the Queen of Iceland, Brunhild, because Gunther cannot do it himself, but Siegfried is married to Kriemhild, so he doesn't want Brunhild. That makes sense. At this point in this story, Grimhild and Brunhild also fight over who is the higher of rank, and Grimhild announces the deception of Brunhilder, and Brunhilder convinces Gunther and Hogni or Hagen, right, same character, to murder Sigurd, which Hogni does while Sigurd is drinking from a spring on a hunt. In this version, though, they place the corpse in Grimhild's bed. and leave it for her, and she mourns it.
Being fair, a lot of the problems here start because Kriemhild doesn't know when to stop talking.
Yeah, but also I feel like Gunther really needs to just
Grow a pair?
marry a woman that like isn't gonna curb stomp him into the ground and then beg someone else to do the work for him. That's just me.
So it's this family. This family is the problem.
This family is the problem.
Continuing the tradition from our Norse tellings.
Speaking of, though, I think this is maybe a good time to tap into this, because this is what we missed last time. So, Guthrun, or Kriemhild, the wife of Sigurd Siegfried, is believed to have her origins in Ildiko, the last wife of Attila the Hun, and two queens of the Merovingian dynasty, Brunhilda of Austria-Asia and Fredegund. Right? So this is the connection to Attila the Hun that we're talking about. So
I have another wiki page open for Kriemhild if you want to open that.
That's fine. I'm not actually going to talk about it other than the connection right now, because I'm going to go back to...
Okay.
Or I guess, you know what? I guess I can just go on to Kriemhild now.
Unless you have more to say for Siegfried.
Oh, I absolutely do. We'll go back to that.
Okay. Yeah, hop between the pages.
We're going to hop between the two. So, Ildiko, right? The last wife of Attila the Hun. Her name is Germanic, and features some common elements in Germanic female names. And so her name has been reconstructed as Hildiko, or Little Hilder, and is probably preserved in Grimhild or Kriemhild, the name of Ildiko's legendary later version in mythology and history. So, according to Priscus, Attila died at a feast celebrating the marriage of him and Ildiko in 453 AD, in which he suffered from a severe nosebleed and choked to death. I would like to just read this, right? Shortly before he died, as the historian Priscus relates, he took in marriage a very beautiful girl named Ildiko. After countless other wives, as was the custom of his race, he had given himself up to excessive joy at his wedding, and as he lay on his back, heavy with wine and sleep, a rush of superfluous blood, which would ordinarily have flowed from his nose, streamed in deadly course down his throat and killed him, since it was hindered in the usual passages. Thus did drunkenness put a disgraceful end to the king renowned in war. On the following day, when a great part of the morning was spent, the royal attendants suspected some ill, and after a great uproar broke down the doors. There they found the death of Attila, accomplished by an effusion of blood, without any wound, and the girl with downcast face weeping beneath her veil.
Imagine that's the way Altera and Fate goes out.
Yeah. So in the Germanic and in the Germanic legend, she corresponds with Guthrun or Kriemhild, and in specifically the Norse versions of this tale, where she corresponds with Guthrun, it's said that she deliberately killed Attila the Hun in revenge for the death of her kinsmen, who died at the hands of Attila the Hun, right? And this is because she comes from the clan Nibelung, right? The clan name, which is used to denote the Burgundian royal house, a group of royal brothers led by King Gunthar or Gunnar, which become responsible for the death of Siegfried and Sigurd and are later destroyed at the court of Attila the Hun in myth. I just thought that was interesting. So, I guess on to Brunhilde. So,
Trying to hop back to Siegfried?
No, we're still on Brunhilde.
Kriemhild?
Sorry. Kriemhild. Brunhild, Kriemhild, Guthrun. I'm
mixing up your Norse and Germanic names.
I think because Sigurd and Siegfried sound so similar that automatically my brain says Brunhild, Kriemhild, same, when it's Kriemhild, Guthrun.
Yeah.
Or Gudrun. So I know where I'm making the mistake, but it's not an easy one to fix inside of my own brain, right?
I could try smacking you with a hammer.
No. So, largely both traditions of Kriemhild and Guthrun agree with one another, right? But in continental stories, such as the Nibelungenlied, she is the first character to be introduced, and the story ends with her death. Part of the poem is actually called Kriemhild in at least one version of the manuscript, and some scholars have argued that the epic represents a Bildungsroman for the character of Kriemhild, and a Bildungsroman is a literary genre which focuses on psychological and moral growth of a protagonist from childhood to adulthood. coming from the name Bildung, meaning education, and Roman, meaning novel. Right? So some people read the story of the Nibelungenlied as a story about Kriemhild, not Siegfried.
Which I found very fascinating.
Well, because the story starts with her and ends with her. It doesn't start with Siegfried and end with Siegfried. She is, in many ways, our frame character, which means that it's her life that we're really focused on and the people coming in and out of her life in a lot of ways. So, and there's a couple different versions of the Nibelungenlied, and different versions emphasize different things about her and her actions. So in versions A and B, she is condemned for her bloody revenge, but in C, they emphasize her love for her dead husband as her motivation, which absolves her of the blame in version C of this manuscript. So in the Nibelungenlied, she's the daughter of King Dankrat and Queen Ute of Burgundy, and her brothers are Gunther, Gernot, and Giselher, with Gunther being the king. The poem opens with her having a dream that she has raised a falcon only to see it killed by 2 eagles, and her mother explains to her that this is a prophetic dream, and what that means is that she will love a man very, very much, but he will be slaughtered one day. So Siegfried comes to the Burgundian court intending to woo Kriemhild. They do not speak for a year, but once he has helped the Burgundians in war, they are allowed to see each other for the first time, and they fall deeply in love and see each other on a daily basis. Once Siegfried helps her brother acquire Brunhild as his bride, the two become married, and they leave for Siegfried's own kingdom, where they live in Xanten and reign. They have a son who they name Gunther, but Brunhild, who is convinced that Siegfried was Gunther's vassal rather than equal king, convinces Gunther to invite Kriemhild and Siegfried to stay with them in Worms. And initially, Brunhild and Kriemhild, they get along, right? 2 queens, they're married to these 2 kind of great men, but in private, they sort of spend a lot of time together. So one day while they're watching a tournament, they argue over which of them has the better ranking husband. And, this gets into the argument between the 2 of them. And what essentially ends up happening is that when Kriemhild declares that Siegfried, not Gunther, has taken the virginity, a section that I've neglected to mention in the Siegfried section is that Kriemhild then does enter the church first before Brunhild, because it is her husband who has taken the virginity of Brunhild, and she is the wife of an equal king, and she is the sister of Gunther. So, unfortunately, at this point in the story, we get some interesting information about Siegfried that's not covered when we talk about Siegfried himself, and I deliberately left it that way because after he is forced to publicly deny the accusations of Gunther, he beats Kriemhild to punish her for revealing this. And unfortunately, this does not satisfy Brunhild. So Kriemhild realizes essentially that she has caused the murder of Siegfried by Gunther and Hagen, and she sees his burial, but refuses to return with Siegfried's father to Xanten, instead remaining in Worms with her family and his tomb. Eventually, Gunther and his brothers reconcile with Kriemhild, but she refuses to forgive Hagen. Kriemhild, after Siegfried's death, inherited the hoard of the Nibelungenlied and had it brought to Worms. She then uses this hoard to acquire warriors, and Hagen, realizing that she is now a dangerous political and economic player, conspires to steal this hoard and sink it in the Rhine. Let me be honest here. Kriemhild is so much more interesting than Siegfried, and I absolutely understand the reading of this story, the Nibelungenlied, as a Bildungsroman for Kriemhild, rather than a story like an epic about Siegfried.
Like, you want the Siegfried story or the Siegfried Sigurd version, go read the Norse version. This is the
Kriemhild version. So 13 years after the death of her husband, the king of the Huns, Etzel, is seeking for her hand in marriage, and she reluctantly agrees. However, after she arrives in Etzel's kingdom, she manages to convince him to invite her brothers to a feast. Gunther agrees, and the Burgundians and their vassals arrive at King Etzel's court. He greets her brothers, but she asks Hagen whether or not he has brought what he stole from her at Worms. Later, she confronts Hagen with a group of Huns, and he provokes her by bragging that he killed Siegfried. And while none of the Huns are brave enough to attack at that time, The Burgundians end up preventing an attack that Kriemhild had planned for the next day. So she is actively seeking revenge at this point, using her new husband's forces and influence. So she convinces Etzel's brother, Blodelin, to attack the Burgundian supplies. And this occurs while she, her husband, and their son Ortlieb, who is his own character in Germanic myth and legend. Ortlieb is, relatively interesting, but, we'll get there. They're seated in the hall with the Burgundians, and upon hearing of this attack, Hagen decapitates him. Kriemhild does not take this the right way. You know what I mean? Well, there is no right way for her to take this, but she takes this offensively, as she should. Upon hearing of fighting erupts, and Dietrich von Bern, once again back in the story, arranges for Kriemhild and Etzel to leave the hall at this point. She later demands that Gunther surrender Hagen to her, but he refuses, and she has the hall set on fire around them. Eventually, Dietrich manages to capture Gunther and Hagen as the last survivors and hands them over to Kriemhild. Kriemhild separates them and demands that Hagen give back to her what he's taken, but he cannot tell her where the hoard is as long as his lord Gunther, her brother, lives. So she has Gunther decapitated. Which, to be fair, Gunther did conspire with them to kill her husband, even though her husband had done nothing but try to help Gunther. Like, Siegfried did nothing to Gunther other than try his hardest to help him. And Gunther replied to that with literally turning on him. So, good for you, Kriemhild. Decapitate him. Hagen then reveals that the hoard is sunken in the Rhine. She takes Siegfried's sword, which Hagen had stolen, and beheads him with it herself. Good for her. Hildebrand, Dietrich's mentor, is outraged that a woman had killed a great warrior, and then hacks her into pieces in the Nibelungenlied. Which I really feel is unnecessary. Hildebrand's a fucking dick.
See, I was reading this, doing my research on this for my own purposes prior to this, and I was reading this in a barbershop, and I was just like, this is a fucking Game of Thrones finale.
Oh my god, it so is. So, there is a German sequel to the Nibelungenlied called the Nibelungenklage. And the Nibelungenklage, even though she does not appear as a living character, the poem goes to massive lengths to establish her as blameless for the catastrophe of the Nibelungenlied. According to the Nibelungenklage, Kriemhild was acting out of love for Siegfried, and the true betrayer was Hagen. And in this version, Hildebrand blames Hagen for the disaster, calling him a fiend. He also blames Kriemhild, but Hagen is the true root of the evil in this one. So, we talked about how there was that other Norse one that takes from German myths, and she's attested in this one as well. And in this one, Grimhild, the daughter of Adrian of Niflungenland, and Oda, the sister of King Gunnar, Gisler, and Gernot, and half-sister of Hogni, or Hagen. He marries her, and then suggests that Gunnar marry Brunhild. Essentially, everything normal goes down, right? And eventually, his corpse is placed into her bed. However, after this, the story changes slightly in names and stuffs, but in this version, Attila, woos Grimhild to be his new wife. 7 years later, she convinces him to invite the Burgundians, called the Niflungs, to visit her by mentioning the hoard of the Nibelungen, which her brothers had stole from her. Atli is seized by greed for desiring this hoard and agrees. And once they arrive, she demands the hoard from them. Hagen, Hogni, says it was left behind. And so she tries to convince Atli's brother and Dietrich to help her take revenge, but both refuse her in this version. Eventually, she provokes a fight by bringing her and Atli's son into the hall and seating him across from Hogni, but telling her son to hit Hogni to provoke him. So, the second time that her son hits Hogni cuts off the prince's head, which leads to a massacre. After this fight, Gunnar is captured, and Grimhild tells Atli to throw him in a tower full of snakes. Hogni, the half-brother, is now the leader of the Burgundians, and they lock themselves into the king's hall, where she orders the hall set on fire, and Gisler and Gernot die in this ensuing battle. She then sticks And she wants to make sure that her brothers are dead, so she sticks pieces of burning wood into their mouths to make sure that they are, which provokes T.H.E, or Dietrich in this case, to then kill her for her actions. Which, I mean, it's pretty vengeful of her, but good for her. She deserves it.
The real girl boss of this.
So, following up, like I did, moving on to Rosengarten zu Worms, which is another great attestation. So in this, she's the daughter of King Gibeche, and she possesses a rose garden guarded by 12 heroes, including her fiancé, Siegfried. Sound familiar? That's because this is her version of this story. Dietrich has a warrior named Ilsan, right? A monk. This is one of the 12 warriors he brought with him. And he punishes Kriemhild for her haughtiness in challenging Dietrich by demanding so many kisses from Kriemhild that his rough beard causes her face to bleed. Right? And then in one version of this poem, the Rosengarten, Hagen also curses her for having provoked this combat between Dietrich and his 12 warriors and Siegfried and his 12 companions. This poem is a lot more judgmental of Kriemhild, and she is generally considered to derive joy from watching the knights fight in brutal conflict, and is kind of the villain of this version of the tale.
So when do we get a Sekhie spectrum of most to least progressive versions of this story between the Norse and Germanic ones?
Look, in my opinion, the best one is the Nibelungenlied.
I love that one.
But specifically the Nibelungenlied C, where she is absolved because she is merely taking revenge for the treachery forced upon her. And you know the reason why I like this? It's because her story is very reminiscent of Olga of Kiev. Like, incredibly in this version. Anyways, so we do have a couple other attested stories in the Germanic tradition. So the heroic poem Bitterolf und Dietleb features the war between the Burgundian heroes of the Nibelungenlied and the heroes of the cycle around Dietrich von Bern. In this also features a fight between Siegfried and Dietrich, in which Dietrich defeats Siegfried after initially appearing cowardly. And also features a fight between Siegfried and the hero Heim, in which Siegfried knocks Heim's famous sword Nagelring out of his hand, and both armies then fight for control of the sword. The text also relates that Dietrich once brought Siegfried to Etzel's court as a hostage, right? Which is interesting as well. So there's also the Heldenbuch Prosa, which was found in the 1480 manuscript Heldenbuch of Dietbold von Hanau, and contained continued oral tradition attestations outside of the Nibelungenlied, and largely agrees with the Norse translation of the T.H.E saga. There's very little that this has to say about Siegfried, other than the fact that he was the son of King Siegmund, coming from Nederland, and was married to Kriemhild. But this source says that Kriemhild orchestrates the entire disaster at Etzel's court in order to avenge Siegfried being killed by Dietrich von Bern, rather than to get her hoard back after Hegel and her brothers conspired and after they killed Siegfried. In this version, Siegfried was killed by Dietrich when fighting in the Rose Garden at Worms. Right, so it's a different oral tradition, but it has some similarities with the Norse version of the Norse version of the Germanic tale, because there's the Norse tale of Sigurd, but then there's also a Norse translation of a Germanic tale that we have been talking about, if that makes sense. There's one other major attestation, and that is the Song of Hornskin Siegfried, or Das Lied vom Hörnen Siegfried. And that is a late medieval, early heroic ballad, so this is much later in time. But does give an account of Siegfried's adventures in his youth, agreeing with many of the details in the T.H.E saga over the Nibelungenlied, which altogether suggests that the T.H.E saga was a more common oral tradition than the Nibelungenlied. This tale largely agrees with the story that Siegfried was raised by a smith in the forest, and that because he was so unruly, he was sent to a dragon, and then he was able to kill the dragon. However, later this version, in where he finds Kriemhild, is slightly different. Here, It says that he stumbles upon another dragon who had kidnapped Princess Kriemhild of Worms, and with the help of a dwarf named Ugel, he fights the giant Kuperin, who has the key to the mountains that Kriemhild has been taken to. In this version, he rescues the princess and slays the dragon and finds the treasure of Nibelungen inside the mountain. However, the dwarf then prophesies that Siegfried will only live 8 years, and because he will not be able to use the treasure, he dumps it into the Rhine on his way to Worms. He then marries Kriemhild and rules there together with her brothers, Gunther, Hagen, and Gisela, but they resent him and have him killed 8 years later. So it's a slightly different kind of agreement. For Kriemhild in the Heldenbuch prosa, she's the daughter of King Gebich, and she arranges the disaster at Etzel's Hall to take revenge on Dietrich von Bern and not necessarily Hagen. So, we're slightly... But she still organizes it by having her son brought out and provoking Hagen, who then kills him. In this version, when Dietrich takes Gunther and Hagen prisoner, she cuts off their heads, which then causes her to be cut into pieces again. Really a sad ending for a wonderful woman. So following that up in this early modern heroic ballad, the Das Lied vom Herrn Siegfried, she's once again daughter of a king, sister of Gunther, Gernot, and Hagen. In this version, she is abducted from her home by a dragon, and the dragon holds her captive in his lair of Mount Trackenstein, treating her relatively well. One day it lays its head in her lap and transforms into a man, explaining to her that she needs to stay with him for 5 years, and if she does, he will marry her and they will travel to hell together. But she does not want this fate, and so Siegfried arrives to save her, but the dragon appears. The dragon forces the two of them to flee into the depths of the mountain, where they find the treasure of Nibelungen and a sword able to cut through the dragon's skin. With this sword, he defeats the dragon, and the two of them return to Worms, where they are married, and they rule together with Kriemhild's brothers. However, they resent how powerful he has become, and after 7 years, they murder him. This version, it's been said, is possibly repurposing an older German story of Brunhild, but we're not actually certain about it. Interestingly enough, a couple of fun attestations for Kriemhild. So there's a phrase, Kriemhilden Hochzeit, or Kriemhilden Hochzeit, and that is actually used in several German medieval works to denote a festival held after an especially bloody battle, or the bloody battle itself. There's also a song from a wandering poet in the mid-13th century that... the song is called When Kriemhild Verriet, or Whom Kriemhild Betrayed, that was popular in court along with tales of Sigurd's death and the Horde of the Nibelungens. And then Hungarian chronicler Simon of Keza from the late 13th century actually records that Attila the Hun was killed by his wife Kriemhild. Like, specifically. That is what the account that's given. I will say, it's a little hard to kind of document the development of Sigurd versus Siegfried and that sort of thing, because if the origins in historical characters is centered on Siegbert I, which I mentioned back at the beginning of the video, then the earliest tradition would attest that his murder is the result of a feud between two women, in real life, like his wife Brunhild of Austrasia and Fredegund, right? And then that would make sense with the Siegfried between his wife Kriemhild Gudrun and Brunhild Brunhilder, right? However, the earliest attested tradition of Sigurd is of his slaying the dragon Fafnir, right? Which supports the notion that he was kind of a mythological origin. But combined, that would tell us that Siegfried Sigurd is likely a mythological figure who then had kind of historical traditions put over the top of it, right? So he started as a myth, but then historical tradition became a part of his attestation, right? So it would have been a combination sort of between the two, not all of one nor all of the other in particular. So largely the attestation that Siegfried was descended from Odin via the Volsung is really only represented in the Norman transition, the Norse transition, and therefore it's unique to the Scandinavian material, as largely the kind of continental and Germanic royal genealogies often begin with the character of Wodan or Gaut, meaning Sigurd's divine descendancy could absolutely be part of the old tradition, but on the continent it would be attributed to Wodan or Gaut, and the Scandinavians attribute it to Odin via Volsung, right? So his relationship with kind of his father has been referenced in multiple ways, and then kind of references to Sigmund, his father, are kind of rampant throughout tradition because he's even mentioned in Beowulf and such. But Beowulf kind of complicates it, as you've got like two characters who kind of slain a dragon and won a horde, and thus some people think that Beowulf might actually be a variant of a Sigurd story, right? Rather than being two separate stories, although there are people who argue that they are unrelated and that there are two separate stories here. Largely in the continental sources, one of the major differences is that his winning of the horde of the Nibelungen and the slaying of the dragon are kind of two different sort of things, or they happen at two different points. One version doesn't even mention Sigurd acquiring the horde, whilst in the Norse tradition the two are combined and they're intrinsically linked. You cannot separate them. As well as the kind of the awakening of Brunhild and avenging of his father is almost entirely a Norse creation. So the Scandinavian stories have largely reworked all of the events of Sigurd's youth, which have the kind of the youth of Sigurd differing massively from Siegfried himself.
Everything's worked more around like actual Norse mythology there.
Exactly, yeah. So Sigurd and his connection to the Burgundians is interesting because the Atla Kavitha, which we talked about in the Sigurd video, generally believes that Sigurd was not connected to the story of the destruction of the Burgundians by Attila, which would mean that the Attila would not come into play with the Scandinavian story at all. And the earliest text to make this connection from Attila to this Siegfried Sigurd myth is the Nibelungenlied in 1200. And although the version attested in the Nibelungenlied appears to be older, we don't have a strong sort of how much older this comes from. In the German tradition, this connection changed the role of Sigurd's widow from avenger of her brother to avenger of her husband on her brothers. And this change occurred before the composition of the Nibelungenlied and has to do with the oral traditions that were present even before this. So basically what we're seeing is that the Scandinavian traditions rewrite all of Sigurd or Siegfried's youth and connect the Nibelungenlied and the dragon Fafnir together like intrinsically, whilst the Germanic traditions are more of a story about Kriemhild and her vengeance, right? So it kind of changes the main character and the point of the story, which makes sense. I mean, you've got oral traditions, and likely they're from cultures that kind of may have different values or see this tale as telling a different story, right? Some interesting things about Kriemhild, right, and her different versions. So, there's a story of the death of Ermanaric or Jormarek in the Saxo Grammaticus, which includes a character named Gudrun or Guthruna. And in this version, Jarmaricus is a Danish king, and Guthrun is a powerful sorceress who casts spells on the weapons of the brothers coming to avenge Svanhild's death to make them invincible. This history was likely completed before 1208, making it the earliest version of Scandinavian tradition that would have been contemporary with the Nibelungenlied, but we don't actually know if this is representing the same character, even though the name is similar. In the prose Edda, we know that the character of Guthrun is Kriemhild is Kriemhild, we know, in the prose Edda. Like, these two characters are syncretic. But there's a character called Gudrun, who is the daughter of Grimhild and Gjuki, and is the sister of Gunnar and Hogni, half-sister to Guthorm. And this Guthrun marries Sigurd. So Guthrun and Grimhild in the prose Edda are two different characters. Meanwhile, Grimhild in one specific version is just a different version of Kriemhild. So there can be some general kind of confusion with the names of characters, but this is also where the connection with Svanhild comes in from that Saxon history, because In the prose Edda, Sigurd and Gudrun have two children, Sigmund and Svanhild. And remember, Svanhild is the person that's being avenged in the Grammaticus story, which is interesting. In this, in the prose Eddas, Gudrun is married to King Atli, and there's the same story about revenge. But in this case, she kills her two sons by Atli after killing her brothers. So Atli invites her brothers, kills them for their gold. She kills her sons by Atli, makes their skulls into drinking goblets, and then cooks their hearts, giving them to Atli to eat, and then telling him what happened. And then she kills Atli along with Hogni's sons. She then burns down the hall. This is a Christmas gift I got from someone. It can be used to drink out of, and I am very excited to do that at some point soon. Love that. In this version, Gudrun tries to drown herself in the sea, but she washes ashore in the land of King Yonak. Yonak marries her and has 3 sons, Sorli, Hamdir, and Erp. And then Svanhild is raised there at this point before being married to King Jormunrek. And then Jormunrek's killed for adultery. Gudrun tells her sons to kill him, giving them special weapons. But her sons still die in the attempt, leading to the ending of her line. I'm not going to cover the rest of the Norse traditions because they're immaterial here. They are not important because we're not talking about the Norse Kriemhild. However, there is an attestation of the Wild Hunt where there is a character called Guthrun Gjukadottir, also called Gjuro Resevrora or Guthrun Horsetail, which I think is interesting because Wild Hunt. Yeah, so
I actually want to give you one last moment here. We've done a long history section, but I have a Fafnir page if you want to faff about dragons for a bit.
So here's the thing, right? So back when we did Sigurd and Guthrun and Brunhildr, you told me to prep Fafnir. And yes. I did. And then we didn't cover him.
No.
So let me go find my Google Docs where I prepped Fafnir. So Fafnir, a worm or dragon who's traditionally been slain by the member of the Volsung family, which would be Sigurd, right? So he is associated, even though he is a Germanic hero, he's associated largely with the Norse attestation of Sigurd, right? In this version, he is the son of Hreithmar, and Hreithmar is an important and rich character in the Volsunga saga and the prose Eddas. He owns a house of glittering gold and gems built by one of his sons, Regin, and guarded by another, Fafnir. He has a third son, Ottar, and 2 others, Lindheithr and Lofnheithr. Ottar was killed accidentally by Loki, and as a result, the Aesir repaid Hreithmar with Andvari's gold and the gold ring Andvaranaut, and we talked about Andvari before because Andvari is the dwarf that lived under the waterfall, and he had a magical ring called Andvaranaut. So Loki caught him on a pike, forced him to give up his gold and the ring, but the gold was then cursed to destroy anyone who would possess it. And eventually what would happen is after the death of Brunhildr and Sigurd, Gunnar would leave Andvari's gold in a cave. And then Andvari would later discover this cave and his lost gold, but the ring was never discovered. So Hreithmar ignores Loki's warnings about the curse of the gold and kept the ring, only to have his sons Fafnir and Regin later kill him for it. Fafnir wanted Andvaranaut for himself, so he turned into a dragon, driving Regin away. And Fafnir would then guard the treasure until Sigurd, on Regin's instigation, arrived to kill the dragon. Regin was then killed by Sigurd while he was attempting to be... Regin was killed by Sigurd because Regin was trying to kill Sigurd for the ring, and Sigurd learned of this because after he killed the dragon and drank the dragon's blood, he was able to understand the language of the birds, and the birds told him about Regin planning murder, essentially meaning that this one treasure and the curse upon it ended the line of the Hreithmar family. Sigurd was killed via the sword Gram, which is a named sword in mythology. It's also known as Balmung or Nothung, and I mentioned Balmung in the German stories. Remember, it's the sword that he gets. Primarily used by the family of the Volsung in the Volsunga saga, but it is seen in the Thederke saga, which is one of the German traditions, wielded by Hildebrand. Hildebrand, who once chopped Kriemhild into tiny pieces. The Fafnir's also been identified with an unnamed dragon that was killed in Beowulf. So technically this could... What?
Just gonna shift the page.
Oh, here I can move it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Technically, Fafnir is also considered to be, in some Germanic works, the same dragon that confronted Beowulf. So they're kind of looking at the same dragon. It's Beowulf, Nibelungenlied, and a bunch of other kind of skald poems. Fafnir and his killing by Sigurd are represented in medieval carvings all over the British Isles and Scandinavia, and on a single axe head done in Scandinavian style that was found in Russia. Fafnir has had massive influence in the modern period. J.R.R. Tolkien drew inspiration from the tale of Fafnir for the portrayal of Smaug and Gollum, because you've got the ring and the Varrout. So Fafnir, before he takes the form of a dragon, is never explicitly described, but his brother is described as being a dwarf. So it's not really clear if he was a relative of dwarf or a dwarf himself, or perhaps this dwarf was the form his brother took on later. But when in the form of a dragon, like in the Fafnismal, he's flightless and snake-like. But he has shoulders which suggest the presence of either legs or wings. So he's not your traditional European dragon, kind of 4 legs and arms, closer to like a worm, which we've discussed before, the differences between dragon types. Essentially, there's a general structure that comes with Fafnir. He kills his father and takes the hoard of treasure given to them by the gods. He then flees with it into the wilderness, often becoming a worm or a dragon. His brother forges a sword that will eventually kill him. Regan asks Sigurd to cook the worm's heart for him, but as Sigurd does this, he manages to learn of Regan's plan to betray him, and eventually Sigurd kills Regan, taking the treasure and loading it up on his horse Grain, or Grani, right? And that's the kind of basic story of the Fafnir tale. We've talked about this in the Fafnismal before, and in the Skaldaskarparmal, because we talked about those stories when we did the Norse one, so I'm not going to go over every version, right? Because that would be counterintuitive when we've already talked about how this story was present in a bunch of them. There's a number of attestations that likely refer to a dragon that likely is Fafnir, but he's never named in any of these, just described as the serpent who guards, or this particular serpent. The tradition of the dragon killing in the continental Germanic record is similar, but generally, much like in Beowulf, scholars look at it and they say either it was a mistake, like the association between Fafnir and these dragons is either a mistake on the part of medieval scholar, or it's an example of older myth being adapted, like older oral tradition being adapted into newer written mythos, where, for example, if you're telling a story about a dragon and the story you heard, the dragon had no name, but you know that the dragon Fafnir is a great and evil beast, so you give your dragon the name Fafnir so that those who are listening to it associate it together, and it creates a picture in their mind, right?
Sounds like how Disney has like 3 Prince Charmings.
A little bit, yeah. It's somewhat similar. Fafnir's killing is attested to in a massive amount of carvings and such all across Northern Europe, and the Sigurd stones depict scenes from the story of Fafnir, typically of the worm encircling the stone and being killed by Sigurd, especially in the Ramsmund and Gok stones.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to be starting today with Siegfried. You want to take a smack at his class here?
Sword, saber.
Good guess.
Yeah, saber.
Saber.
All right, look at my... Oh! Okay, can I do something real quick? Because it's been a while.
Yeah.
I need to look up Sigurd and
Yeah, go ahead.
And at least Sigurd. So.
You just want to see what Sigurd looked like. They're very different.
I know, but I don't quite remember what Sigurd looked like, so I wanted to... Okay, that's who I thought it was. Okay, I was just double checking. I'm just going to leave that open to the side and then go look over here now. Okay. All right. Hang on. Oh,
so Siegfried here actually originates from Fate Apocrypha.
Okay. Dragon horns were added. Oh. I love the costume.
Casino outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now, I really like Siegfried's design. You know? I'm loving this 1970s naval V. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know me and dragons. I mean, this is on the same level of Draco for me. You know what I mean? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm very happy with this.
I assumed this design would do it for you.
Yes.
So, as we established in the Sigurd video, Fate separates the Germanic and Norse traditions of the story into two different people, claiming their stories got conflated due to similarities over the years.
Which makes sense. It does. That's often what happens with oral traditions, is that sometimes you'll have oral traditions of multiple different stories, but different groups get together and they'll start talking about their stories as, gee, that's really similar to mine. And then it gets written down that there are kind of like two stories
floods
syncretized
are there
into...
all
there is a flood myth in almost every single culture in the world that we know of.
So, like, Siegfried himself is the Saber class servant of Fate Apocrypha's Black faction, so often he'll be called Saber of Black by people.
Okay.
In Fate, he's fully aware of the conflict between... so in Fate, like, going into his history in Fate, he's fully aware of the conflict between Brunhild and Kriemhild.
Yep.
And he was fully aware of how wrong things went.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to avoid the conflict going nuclear and believed the best way to settle this would be to allow himself to die. So he actually knew they were going to kill him, and he even gave permission to Hagen and told Hagen where his weak spot was himself.
Yeah.
He, of course, didn't account for Kriemhild becoming even more vengeful, and we kind of know where that goes down the road.
Uh-huh.
So Siegfried's one fatal flaw in Fate is that he's never able to turn down the request of others. He was always selfless to a fault, to the point where he didn't believe his own death was actually that big of a deal.
Oh, poor baby.
This is the belief that led him to foolishly letting himself die, believing it would solve the conflict. He knows exactly what happened as a result of that, because after he becomes a servant, he knows the full story.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads him to holding a great sense of regret as a servant, to the blindness of his lack of self-preservation led to. I won't touch on his actions in Fate Apocrypha yet, because that'll be important to come later on. But just know he carries the guilt of knowing the approach of the situation, and in what he seeks from the Grail is to find a way where he can act on his own wishes as opposed to what's better for the greater good. So he wants to do something selfish, but not evil. Mm-hmm. He seeks to... So yeah, and that's entirely a mean of atoning for the flaw, for the horror that came out of his own selflessness.
Mm-hmm. Aww.
I wouldn't recommend reading too close, because some of this might go into Fate Apocrypha.
Mm. Okay, relationships. Right?
Yep.
All right. I love how Kriemhild's relationship is not here.
Because she's too new. I feel kind of bad that one's missing, but...
all right. It seems Kriemhild had been in your care, but as your wife? So that's Altera. Oh! Got it. All right. Vlad III. The Great Holy Grail War. My heart aches with regret. I feel especially terrible for that Lancer of Black. At least I'm able to wield my weapon alongside him in battle now, which is both a relief and my way to atone. I'm really sorry for having seemed to trouble you in another world. Rider of Black, Astolfo. So you're here too. Next time you want to try saving someone, bring me with you. It's fine. I won't hesitate again. Brunhilde. Please calm down and take a deep breath. I am not Sigurd. No, I'm really sorry. Aww. The Lancer of Red, Karna. I'd like to finish our battle, but it looks like you have someone you need to settle a score with already. I suppose I will just have to wait my turn. Sieg. You are, I see, so this must be fate of a sort. I have little power myself, but I will be happy if I can be of help to you. Jean d'Arc, Alter Santa Lily.
Of all the ones.
I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Reindeer number 2. Actually, I'm more of a reptile myself. I'm really sorry.
You just keep saying sorry.
Oh, look at that.
So
I
that's
know who
Fate
that is.
Apocrypha art.
I know who that is. I know who that is.
There's Fran.
Yep. I know. I said I know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
And I know who that is. It's Vladdy. Jesus. So Sieg is popular. Siegfried is popular.
Siegfried's big. I'll get into like what happens in Apocrypha later. So, but abilities wise, Siegfried is next to invincible. Nothing short of a perfect, powerful blow to his weak spot on his back, where the leaf was covered when he was bathed in dragon blood, or just a straight up anti-dragon weapon can actually do him any harm. His primary weapon is the Holy Sword Balmung. You're welcome to read through that.
Also, yeah.
Basically, he's a tanky motherfucker.
I see the thing about Sieg.
Yeah.
You gonna get to that?
Yeah, I'll be getting to that later.
Okay. Then I will skip it for now. All right. Magic resistance riding. Okay. Dragon Slayer, obviously. Golden Rule, attaining the treasure of the Nibelungs and a lifetime of wealth. Oh, Des Rhine gold. As in the gold that was drowned in the Rhine.
Yep.
Disengage. So, okay, so Noble Phantasms. He's got Armor of Fafnir. That's the horn-like covering on his body that makes him invincible.
Yeah, so... the Siegfried's invincibility skin.
Balmung.
And
Which technically counts as an NP?
Yes, so this ends up being his big sword attack. It's another fuck-off sword beam like Excalibur. It's a little weaker in direct power, but also serves as a powerful anti-dragon attack when used. It also releases notably faster than even most other similar Noble Phantasms.
It also says here so treasure manifests as the Noble Phantom Das Rheingold, which can be accidentally summoned alongside Fafnir.
Yeah, so Fafnir can
is
be
another
accidentally summoned alongside Siegfried. It's only happened once so far, but it can happen.
All right, I'm taking a look at the...
One thing to note about his little dragon design, there's a reason why he has that big open V. He cannot cover the spot where the leaf covers. That has to remain exposed.
Okay, I'm taking a look at the illustrator though. Okay, that's the Fate Apocrypha. All right, so these are the people who do him in. This is the person who does him in FGO. Also does Shakespeare, Jack the Ripper, Astolpha, Shiro Tokusada, Kriemhild, Mordred, Spartacus, Semiramis, Atlanta Alter,
all the
Avis
Fate
Braun,
Apocrypha characters.
Achilles. Yeah, Chiron and Sieg. Okay, all right. I was just checking.
Also Protogil and Protoku.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, if you want, I have some NPs here if you want to take a look at them.
You do. You have some NPs for Yeah, beat up those dragons. Also, now I can finally use my Siegfried with the art on. I've had Siegfried in campaigns since Orléans, and I have been avoiding using him because I don't want to get spoiled by art, because I actually really like Siegfried as a character, so I am so excited that I'll finally be able to use him again in the D&D campaign. You know? Not that unique in animation, but I still like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
got
big
the
fuck off.
Exactly. Which means it's perfect. Alright, and now I have a JP.
Yep.
Arcade. Arcade. I love a good arcade. See, these ones are too.
It's weird that it's like so inconsistent.
Something about the actual like arcades and stuff, they're and like the FGO stuff, they're just really loud. I love him. I can definitely see the fact that his author also did Shiro Tokusada. Like, there's a very similar look to them in terms of like face and hair, but I like it. I like it a lot. Hell yeah! Oh, big fuck off sword man. I mean, I liked Sigurd and Brunhild too, but like I'm loving Siegfried. He's hella cool. So you've got Fafnir for me next?
Yes, so I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into Fafnir here. So,
Oh, look at him. He's so cute.
I would caution against reading a lot of this, because once again, we'll get into a lot of Apocrypha stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look at the art.
Oh, plus I can look at the background.
Yeah, so as we discussed before, Fafnir is a dragon that reincarnates through mankind's greed, usually through cursed gold. Mm-hmm. One thing I didn't mention is that he actually has a chance at being chain summoned whenever Siegfried is summoned, because of Siegfried's golden rule, where he unintentionally calls the Rheingold. It's rare, but it happened during the FGO Orleans Singularity, if you remember that fight. Mm-hmm. Ability-wise, he's notable for being Fate's strongest dragon, stronger than even the Tarrasque. Mm-hmm. And he actually has some noble phantasms. So he's kind of a servant. We just haven't seen him summoned as one. Mm-hmm. The first one is Deinslif. Fafnir has a noble phantasm, which is a sword that he keeps with him. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever actually seen him use it, but he possesses the sword, which once unsheathed will draw its wielder to kill, and it cannot be sheathed again until it has taken a life. The other thing that Fafnir has...
Nibelheim?
Yeah.
That's the realm of the Nibel.
Yeah. His fires are apparently strong enough to even break through Mash's noble phantasm.
Oh.
With enough time.
Interesting.
So he's not been shown explicitly summonable yet, but we do have one instance of one of Fafnir's hosts being summoned.
And that's Sieg?
Yep.
Okay.
So let's strap on your Fate stuff. Also, we have some artwork for Sieg as well in the
I know,
FGO
I'm just
page.
taking a look at this stuff first. Okay. Alright. Is he a welfare servant?
Yes.
Okay. I could tell. He only has 2.
Very few minimal designs
two.
to go over.
Yeah. Alright, so Sieg.
So this is Sieg, the main protagonist of Fate Apocrypha. Sieg here is a homunculus created by the now recurring mage family in Fate of the Musics. Mm-hmm. They joined the Great Holy Grail War, seen in the series on the Black faction side, as one of the mage families to defect and join the conglomerate family, the Yig Millennia. Mm-hmm. They mass-produce homunculi based off the Einsburn design and hope that they can recreate those, and they were ultimately unable to achieve it, resulting in their family being considered washed out in the mage world, despite their somewhat notable bloodline. Mm-hmm. That was their motivation to join the war, where they used the mass-produced homunculi as soldiers. The head of the family, Gorda's Music, you can actually... I forgot to pull an image up, but I felt there's no other real good time to pull this up. I can look it up if you'd like.
Yeah?
Yeah, Gorda's Music Millennia. This guy.
Ah.
So, he was the kind of man you'd want to punch...
repeatedly?
Yes, as he would blatantly abuse and treat his creations as less than human.
Oh, precious babies.
Then one day during the early days of the Grail War, one nameless homunculus woke up and he had more self-awareness than the others and wanted to live. He would run into Astolfo and Chiron, who would shelter him for a little from their masters. They'd eventually try to spirit him away from the base to give him a chance to live his short life free. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, he was being eyed for his much more potent magic circuits by the Musics. And Gordes decided they needed a homunculus of that quality to act as a core for their side's caster's noble phantasm.
Yeah.
So upon realizing what was going on, Gordes and his saber Siegfried, see where this is going.
Yep.
They go after him. Gordes catches up to him and deals a crippling blow to the homunculus that would undoubtedly lead to his death, as it shattered his already weak heart. Mm-hmm. Siegfried realizes what's going on from Astolfo, and before his master can react, knocks the Musics in the head, causing him to go unconscious. Siegfried saw this as his chance to do something good that made him happy and wasn't necessarily for the greater good. So then he jabs his hand into his chest, rips his own heart out, and implants it into the homunculus. He dies as the homunculus is revived.
Aww.
The homunculus would have for sure been taken back to the Black faction, except the ruler of the war, Jean d'Arc, happened to show up at that exact time and identified him as a third party of the war, as he was not bound by a limited lifespan. So he was fully human and could not and was not part of either faction, so she took him under her protection.
Oh, good.
He would take up the name Sieg in honor of the servant that saved his life. He and Jeanne d'Arc would, over the course of the series, develop a bit of a romantic bond. And eventually he would return to the Ignomonia stronghold to free the other homunculi. Granted, they didn't know what to do with that freedom, and even after the war would stay with the Musics. But anyways, Sieg at least successfully used his own cooperation with their side to leverage as a leverage tool to get them basic human rights, and was able to convince the Music head to name all of the homunculi. They would go on to become an integral part of the family, often with more control than even the Music head, who would become more mellow with age. And he would even come to see them as a valuable part of the family. The first one who was half-heartedly named was named Tool, and would end up practically raising the future head of the family. The recurring literal background character in Elmoy, and one of the main characters in FGO's second arc, Gordolf Music. I'm not going to go into him right now, but Gordolf is best boy, but he's not the point of the video. So Sekhie is unique. He's very weak, being just a homunculus.
Relationships?
Oh no, I'm still not out of it.
Oh, never mind.
Sorry, yeah, we are not done here.
Okay, never mind.
So he's very weak, just being a homunculus, but he holds Balmung. Sorry.
A little quieter.
By briefly drawing on the power of his heart, he can manifest Siegfried into his own body, becoming the hero for a short period of time, fully capable of using his abilities, including his noble phantasms. Thing is, each time he transforms into the hero, he would start to gain dragon scales. It quickly becomes clear that if he does it too much, he will become Fafnir. His final sacrifice is to let that happen, where he uses Fafnir's abilities to fly to the reverse side of the world, the same plane of existence as Avalon, where he hides the Grail away. Sieg is later summonable in Fate Grand Order. By now, he's more of a recreation of Sieg, made by the Guardian of the Grail, Fafnir. In a lot of ways, he is our Fafnir servant, and he even identifies himself when we meet him in FGO as Fafnir. And he is summoned as a caster class servant. Before we move on, I do want to say this all sounds pretty good on paper. I will note, writing-wise, Sieg is often likened to cardboard, so don't get too hopeful that his execution on his character will be that interesting as we watch the series later.
Aw. Okay, so. Oh, so the Maiden of Orleans is here too. I guess that makes sense. She would never stay idle if humanity was at risk. But I don't think she knows me, so leave her alone. She's just a vague, distant memory, even for me, and I don't see that changing unless we meet under different circumstances. I see. Ruler being here is a natural logic. It's not like she will remember me, but I can't help but carelessly call out to her. Another aspect of that ruler, it's hard to believe, but there are many things with this situation. And the outside may be different, but her being too serious at the core feels like ruler. No, the class is Avenger, though. Japanese swords, 3-sword style. I knew you were here, Ryder. I don't get it, but he said my Saint Graph hasn't changed while giving a forced laugh. Okay, let's both do our best. Ryder is Ryder anywhere. I'm glad. That was a Stolfo. Stolfo say, let's see. Everyone is a splendid hero, though only a little. I'm proud of been able to fight. Okay, Chiron. Things here seem much more peaceful. If it's possible, I would like to learn a great deal from you. Wait a minute. It seems like a stack of homework just appeared out of nowhere. I never had the opportunity to have a full conversation with you, but the fact that I am here at all is thanks to you. Thank you, Siegfried. There is nothing else to say. Mordred, I'm glad to see you well. Did you find what you were looking for? I see. Let me just go and greet your father. Why are you so mad? Okay. Okay. Avisabran, the choices you made should probably be never forgiven, but your cry for peace seems sincere, so I'm happy to fight by your side. He was once someone I fought against, but now that he is our ally, I shouldn't be carrying any grudges against him. Still, I am conflicted. I'm sure Amakusashiro feels the same. Summarizing, you're a homunculus, Sitanai, Freya, and Lohe. I see how complicated. Me too, in general. I'm a homunculus, temporary borrowing Siegfried's power. Can transform into Fafnir, and I'm a fragment of a former master. How complicated. You're going to have us watch Apocrypha, aren't you?
Eventually. It's kind of in the hat. It's not one I'm really pushing to watch, but...
So... Then I'm going to flip through.
You'll probably end up liking Apocrypha if nothing else, because it's like watching your favorite action figures get beaten against each other.
Good. Good. He pretty. Okay, abilities.
So, Sieg as a servant retains his ability to become Siegfried, but he also fights well on his own. He takes advantage of both Siegfried's powers as well as Fafnir's to allow himself to be more capable of fighting than he was in life. I've mostly described his powers because I kind of had to with his backstory, but...
Yeah. Artificial hero. This is created by receiving the heart of the hero. Okay. Dead count shapeshifter. That's the transforming into Siegfried even temporarily. All right, during phantasms.
So, the first one he has here is the Blasted Tree.
Mm-hmm.
This is Fran's noble phantasm.
Yeah, because she's the one, her electricity...
Remember that I mentioned a long time ago that Fran could use her NP to generate herself into another body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she partially did that in Apocrypha. When she dies using her noble phantasm there, the energy is taken into Sieg, where she silently grants him power and access to her noble phantasm. It also grants him her galvanism, which pairs well with his other abilities.
And then his other one is Acaphiloga Algrith.
Yes. I will note that he does have the armor of Fafnir and Balmung while transformed, too.
Okay.
But yes, that noble phantasm allows Sieg to transform back into the full dragon Fafnir, which allows him to use Fafnir's powerful dragon breath to vaporize enemies. And yeah, that dragon breath is, as I mentioned earlier with the Fafnir part, really, really strong.
Should I scroll down into Saber of Black?
It doesn't matter. She's gonna show Siegfried.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, there's not much. I don't have anything extra here.
Okay.
That's just going over the fact that he did function as Saber of Black for the other side during Apocrypha at some points.
Okay. All right.
So we have some NPs for him, because he is an FGO server.
One. Oh, it's so friggin' loud. Really gotta watch that.
I did include a full video, because the Aniplex one only includes the Noble Phantasm, whereas I wanted to give you at least a little bit of Siegfried.
Where? This is the only video for him.
Oh yeah, I know. No, I mean
okay.
there's another version of this. Like, we normally watch the official one.
Mm-hmm.
This one I wanted to let you see a little bit of what he was doing.
Okay.
You can skip to the NP if you want.
転身開始。
Oh god. You mind muting? I hate to do that to you, but I know for a fact this
Anime?
tracks from an anime.
Ah. Hot. Your face just turned.
And yeah, that is Sieg.
Okay, so all you've got left is Kriemhild?
Yes, yes. What class do you think?
Lancer.
All right,
Saber?
let's go.
Saber.
All right, locking that in.
Yeah.
Berserker.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not surprised. Well, I love her design. All of them. It's so cute. It's like Gothic Lolita. I'm a huge fan. Is that a dragon's eye I see on her blade?
Yes.
Also, because she's so new, we don't have a chibi funny form?
No, we should. Is it not listed
Not
there?
there. Hold on.
Oh, wait, it might be this might be the year where they didn't do one.
Yeah, they didn't do one because they did the baseball ones.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Because she comes out later this year after they do this year's, and the following year does baseball.
Yeah.
So this is my fun time. Kriemhild is otherwise untouched from her role in the Germanic story. She, after Siegfried's death, would go on to get revenge against her former family Really, the largest oddity to occur in Fate is that it keeps with her original story. Namely, she marries Attila, who is still Altera. Altera would be pushed into a mostly political marriage by her advisors, but this is was mostly not involved, not even easily remembering the name of Kriemhild upon summoning. The result was it was entirely political and loveless, but it did still result in the Hun's power being put into Kriemhild's hands. When she finally manages to kill Hagen and reveals Hagen, as one last of revenge as he's dying, reveals that Siegfried, the idea to kill Siegfried was Siegfried's. This would end up driving her mad, as her revenge could never be properly fulfilled. And before her own killing, she would be just thrown into this raw rage at not only her former family, but also Siegfried himself.
Which is why her like says Siegfried and her dislike says Siegfried.
Yeah.
But also Gunnar and Hagen.
Now, I know we're going to get to relationships here in a second, but her relationship with Siegfried upon summoning is complicated. In one hand, she loves him. On the other hand, she was summoned as a berserker, trapped in that moment of rage before her death, at Siegfried's part to play in his own death. So she tries to tone down her hatred for him a little, due to the events of Fate Grand Order being rather serious, but deep down, she does long for the ability to talk things over with him, even if it's hard for her to do so as a berserker.
Aw, honey.
In a rather hilarious twist, we'll get this in a little bit, she seems to have taken an investment in Sieg's future. The fandom has already accepted that she has adopted the poor boy to save him from Siegfried's stupid ass influence.
This is Mumther?
Mumther.
She is Mumther! That makes this so much better. Alright, relationships. What is it? Siegfried Sama, do you have any business with the wife you didn't even love, you bastard? Please don't touch me. Your heroism will infect me. I have the body of a berserker after all, so I'm not someone that a greatly splendid Mr. Hero like you should be concerned about. So well then, if you excuse me. I apologize, I lost my composure. Dea, no, Siegfried Sama. It's not like I was concerned about anything. That you snuggled up to me in that state was obviously well within my calculations, for the sake of revenge. Hey, what is with that face of having lost your focus? Ah, sheesh, dear. Give it a rest already, you dimwit. Master, don't you just nod with satisfaction from behind. Do something about this situation. You smell like someone related to me. Your name is, I see, Sieg. Sieg, you say. For your own good, change your name right now.
Cat. Knocked over Legolas.
Jesus fucking Christ, Cat.
Poor Legolas.
Put his hair back on. I need to, like, pin it down. You'll move your cup. That's his spot. Given and change it to something like Hans or Schmidt. If you don't, you will end up acting like a sort of hero and dying satisfied, you know? Wait, did you just look away? Wait a minute. Okay, sit down. I'll have you tell me thoroughly about the mistake that you made. So that hero with the glasses is Sigurd. For some reason, he ticks me off, so can I decapitate him in a bit? It's fine, is it not? He's a hero anyway. He won't die just because I do something to him. Maybe. Brunhilde, ha. It's fine. She's a different woman. She's a different woman. Because her looks and her voice and her contents and everything about her is different. No, rather, she's too different. Were you so fleeting in that other mythology? So the person you love there, I see. Yes, I'm sorry. So would you like to have some tea? Well, only if you want. Hey, Master, is there not a Brunhild from another mythology that I don't know about? Yes, that sort of person with a wonderful chainsaw noble phantasm. It is so nice, that chainsaw. I want Balmung to have a gimmick a bit more like that. But I think she should be more moderate about stabbing the man she loves night after night, in a chaste way.
So, Kriemhild also wields Balmung. This time it has become a cursed demonic sword due to the amount of tragedies it's been involved in. She is not as adept with swordplay as the sword's other users, but because it has become a demonic sword in her hands, she uses its properties and energies in combat far more than any of the other users.
The other one is Hortglut Rashelglotter. That's the other NP?
So I have her 2 NPs here. Her first NP is Balmung Kriemhild. This is the release of Balmung and Kriemhild's Hands, where Siegfried uses it as an anti-army noble phantasm. Kriemhild uses it more in the form... it uses it more to target the neck of her direct enemy. And then the other one that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce.
Fort Glut Rachagotter.
Yes, this is a currently unseen noble phantasm that is based on the scheming. It's based on the scheming that Kriemhild did. Basically, it's Game of Thrones, the noble phantasm. It will, to my understanding, set our enemies ablaze. It's a weak NP, but when part of a more complex scheme than just entering a fight, it'll result in a very, very deadly noble phantasm.
Yeah, I see reciprocated slaughter, the revenge plot, affection of Homina, the love of a noble maiden. Yeah. All right. So, NP. Y'all gotta figure that shit out. Oh, I love the nuts little cackle.
This is full. I'm going to take everything, the world out with me.
I can appreciate that. Good. Oh, and yes. Go, little goth princess. Destroy.
Yeah.
I love her. She's glorious. We need more. I'll close Sigurd now.
Yeah.
I remember what he looks like. I was like, I thought he was the glasses dude with the grayish hair, but I had to be sure. All right. Gallery. Okay. Oh, I didn't see his baseball. That's why I didn't see. Ooh, he's ready. Super cool biz.
He's just got a costume. It's just him with glasses.
I know.
I
love it.
That's the casino outfit.
I love it. All right. Exciting. That's just arcade. Not really any extra art. Oh, there's some stuff down at the bottom.
Him and Kriemhild.
Oh, yeah.
That's really good art.
It really is. Love that. Balmung. Alright, we got some... Okay. Prince of Slayer. Is that?
That's Kojiro.
I thought so. You are my dragon, one wink and you're mine. The ultimate idol unit, Dragon Busters, has flown from Orleans and made their debut. No need to fear wyverns anymore.
Wait. No, go ahead, sorry.
The Dragon Busters will protect you. Ladies with archer attributes may not enter the venue.
Oh my god, they actually made it canon.
What?
Sekhie Kojiro is often called the savior of France and a dragon killer. Not because he has anything to do with France or anything to do with dragon killing in his stories, but because he was one of the only assassins to be released when Orleans was out, and he was the easiest one to get, and all the dragon enemies in Orleans were rider enemies, so people used him to fight all the dragons.
Oh, yeah. I like it. I love their little outfits, too. Real showy, sparkly. Das Rheingold. The family of Mist told the hero at his death the treasure was cursed. They were right about that. Everything went wrong. Nobody could stop it. The hero has no attachment to the gold, but he couldn't throw it away because it was obvious that it would start shining as soon as it is thrown. On that day, the curse came through. Annihilation list.
He's just part of MHX's kill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember the saber shall die, saber shall die, saber shall die, saber shall die. No. Okay. You can be a dragon too, set. Oh, look, it's a little horn.
It's strap-on horns and wings.
You know, I have an order out on a set of strap-on dragon horns for my headphones. It's too bad they hadn't arrived yet. I'm sure it's nothing to be excited about, is what he says as he hands you a dragon costume set. Yet as expected from an invention of Da Vinci, it does not disappoint. One could use its wings to soar in the sky for 5 turns, while the tail can deal 3d6 damage to enemies with a range of 5.
Can you tell how we had to implement this into...
How come I didn't get this for
Is your Siegfried level
Valentine's?
5?
Yeah.
I have to take a look, because this feels like this is directly translated to D&D, so I believe you just translated it directly, but...
Oh, I didn't get him, and I do have him as level 5.
You might not have given to me in your list.
I might have forgotten to, because I had
take
so
a
many.
look.
Yeah. Anyways, this is better than all of the chocolates that we've seen. I want this.
I love that it's literally pre-made for me and my brother for D&D.
I know, it's amazing. I love it. Afternoon in the Citadel. Oh, there's the...
So that little boy down there, that's Gordulf.
Ah, but there's that dude.
There's Gordas.
Yeah. All right. When preparing for battle, assessing one's own territory and the lay of the land is critical. And while he's exploring the fortress, it appears that his master has come chasing after him. Though it looks like master is more worried that the tour guide is his own son. Ort. The dragon and the dragon swordsman. A king harboring a red dragon within herself, and a swordsman who became a dragon after slaying one. The sacred sword shines brilliantly, and the great sword spirit stands at the ready, as if each were responding to the other's presence.
Siegfried's actually a counter to Artoria, because Artoria has a dragon component to her.
Oh, and yeah, that would make sense. Aw, look at all this. Is so funny. Look, there's a little Fafnir! Like a little dragon tied on there. It's so cute! Oh my goodness. Look, it's father and son. Okay, canon in my head, Siegfried Kriemhild Sieg. Canon in my soul. This is a family unit. Like this is a family unit, and I am here for it. I am expecting there to be fan fiction for this on AO3 soon. Like, do not disappoint me.
Well, Kriemhild's not out in the US version yet.
I don't care. The sight of them carrying numerous items that look as though they will spill from their arms evokes the image of a modern-day Santa Claus. These are all gifts from servants to show their appreciation for their master. To be entrusted with wishes and sentiments conjures up some distant memories, but I will happily bear such precious cargo. Heroic Spirit Dream Portrait. This is in Gotterdammerung. Lovely.
Norse Siegfried, but not Sigurd.
But hot. Yep, 7th anniversary. If I have met you there in a different form. I love that. Smile Night. Oh, it's a... Oh, because they only get the summer, like, arts. Disappointing. Those are shrimp chips. I love those so much. Okay.
This one actually will have a translation to it.
How about that? Sometimes you just get blown by the sea breeze. Sorry, this is just my selfishness. I want you to give me the time I never had before. The flower of passion that blooms at the tip of his outstretched hand is already red. And it's not just because of the strength of the sunlight, but it seems like the man just can't seem to grasp it. Well, I'm aware of that kind of dullness, so I can't help it. Not the most helpful translation. It's a little jambled, so...
It's like a very poetic one, so it doesn't translate crazy well.
Yeah, but I approve. Alright, Sieg. He's sliding into home base. I hope. Anyways. Jesus.
No, Sieg, stop. You don't need to slide. That's only first base.
Oh, so cute. Okay. Fate Apocrypha. Yeah, I'm not. A prayer for the sword, a wish for life. Is this still Fate Apocrypha?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know everyone in there.
I do. Nameless death. What?
Oh, nothing.
Okay. She had no name, no history. She never had any obligations, any needs, any fate of her own. Luna. Hi, love. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on. She never had any obligations, any needs, any fate of her own. The only reason she met her end was because she was there. She was merely caught amidst it all. She held no grudges, her hatred gone. I know. I realize she had no need for those emotions. And that's exactly why I'm sad. There is nobody who will remember her name, not even herself. When she held my hand, did she really feel salvation? Through my hand, did her regrets and resentment really disappear? There will probably be no real answer to those questions. For eternity, forever.
So I think that's in reference. There's a point in Apocrypha where Sieg finds a dying homunculus and just holds her hand as she dies.
Oh. Do you see what I mean? Since he received chocolates, he figured he needed to reciprocate and asked around for advice. Getting a hint from the 7 gods of fortune, he drew a picture to put under a pillow for good luck. It was his very first attempt at drawing something, and he struggled a bit, but he did at least finish it. Hopefully this will help prevent you from having nightmares. And should I flag events under the nightmare removing category? I think it's remarkably well drawn. Bedside Fafnir. Angel breath. Let's do this. 1, 2. Wait, Ryder, I still have to warm up. I don't think he's listening. With light shining through the beautiful stained glass, it's another day of practicing singing to music from the pipe organ. Hang in there, you quirky choir. Okay. Kriemhild.
She's pretty new. She probably doesn't have too many.
We have a baseball.
Yep.
I love her little draconic eyes.
Looks like she's about to beat someone to death with that bat.
I know. It's very attractive. It really is. Oh, okay, love. Okay. She's pulling me closer. I mean, I'm here for it. Oh, hold on. Okay, here we go. Yeah, nothing new down here. All right. Oh, I'm gonna have to find her in Smile Night. Keep a prayer burning in your heart. Oh, look, it's like the opera. Look, she's up in like an opera box watching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a matter of course. Helping people, be a good person. Before being a knight, that's the fundamental way a person should be. I want her to step foot upon this land. I want her to take a deep breath. I want her to laugh and to shout out loud. Ah, at the end of the day, that is all I want. Seriously, though, I hate this. There is no way I could have this kind of happy ending. This is the painting of a dream, the image of worlds that cannot exist, where you are excited, your hearts brought together, and the joy of exchanging affections is treasured. And yet, you can see it. Flying over fantasies, playing in the fields, and instead of going against the magnanimous wind brought about by the irreplaceable people, they embrace it, going about such silly days. Ooh, it's blood-soaked this time. Something I could not care less about. Well, this is Das Rheingold, of my ex-husband, ex-prince, ex-adventurer. It is a doomed treasure that Siegfried got. Do you know why I was particular about this treasure? It's not unreasonable if you don't understand. I wanted to destroy it? Correct answer. Yes, it didn't matter, I didn't care. Even if it's magically valuable, it's just gold for me. I should have melted it into gold coins. Master, be careful too. The dazzling gold will dazzle your heart. A close person may betray you. You may want to betray a close person. Therefore, I will teach you simple measures in a case. It doesn't matter, so use it quickly. By using and sharing, the curse and disaster will disappear. That is what is cursed and golden. Ah, heroic spirit dream portrait in the exact same location. I love her little... Oh, they match! Yeah, they match. Hold on. Look at that. They match. Oh,
They're right
that's-
next to each other too.
Yeah, that's
I wish
what
I
I'm
could like
saying.
line them right like side by side.
All right, Love Delusion. Ooh. Okay, love. I got it. Okay, Love Delusion. Oh, boy. Fuck. I know, Luna. You want me to go back to petting you. Okay, I know. Sometimes, like this is of no use to that person. It's okay. It's just self-satisfaction. It's my duty as a queen. The little love I kissed is reflected in my eyes, and my pride is complicated. Once again, I think that's supposed to be more poetical, so the translation is not ideal. Sincere chocolate with sermon attached. Oh, I love the whole like goth theme that they've got going for her. A solid chocolate just like her, with the baked chocolate in a combination of black, red, and white wrapping. The only difference between the one for the master and the one for Siegfried is the message card contents alone. For Siegfried, she eloquently described in a long piece of text how much a useless person Siegfried is. For Master, she fervently and passionately wrote about how foolish it is to imitate Siegfried.
She has a lot of my useless husband vibes.
Where? Is that her hair at the bottom left?
Yes.
Okay. They're on a cruise ship together. I love that for her. Can I say, I love Siegfried, but I love Kriemhild more.
I just love their dynamic, and this is a very recent thing too.
Mm-hmm. She's perfect. I adore her.
Like, I've always liked Siegfried as a gentle giant kind of servant.
Yeah.
Then you introduce Kriemhild, and it's like, God damn you, fuck you.
Giant, calm, angry, small.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have never met Luna, this is my oldest cat. Her name is Luna, and she's very fragile, and she used to hate humans and me. As you can see, that is no longer an issue.
Now she might be having panic attacks whenever there's not someone nearby to pick her up and she's freaking out.
Yeah. So anyways, I hope you like her. She certainly likes being around us. Oh, I'm so sorry. I stopped petting you, my darling. That is my fault. I am at fault. I am at fault. Do you have a hint for our next servant? Because I do not.
Not really, but I'll say that our next servant is going to be effectively our next super video, because this one's going to be fucking long.
It's gonna be very long.
I could be obvious, but that'd be way too obvious.
Yeah. Anyways.
You know, I'll say this. Our next video we might be having to add an addendum if we record it too soon. There we go. That's my hint.
All right. So with that being said, we will see you next time for more Servant Reacts. Try harder, everyone.